Well, look at these. They are some of the most searing images in our collective memories. School children lined up against the force of water hoses and attacked by dogs, all because they wanted to end their city's suffocating policies of segregation. The city of Birmingham, Alabama, and this week, 50 years after those horrifying events, Birmingham welcomed a well-known journalist to reflect on those times and how her own journey intersected with the civil rights movement. She is with Jeff Koinange right now. Jeff?
That's right, Debbie. And you know, she needs no introduction at all. Charlayne Hunter-Gault has spent most of her life documenting the news as a witness to history. But in the beginning, she made a little history of her own by integrating the University of Georgia in January of 1961 alongside fellow student Hamilton Holmes. In this month's issue of Essence magazine, she is celebrated as a pioneer of the civil rights movement, along with notable women Shirley Sherrod, Merle Evers-Williams, and Marion Wright Edelman. Charlayne is a multi-award-winning journalist. Get this, 2 Emmys and 2 Peabodys to her name, among numerous other awards. And I'm proud to call her my friend. Charlayne, good to see you. Welcome to Arise America.
Thank you. This is very exciting to be on this wonderful new network.
Excellent.
With you.
We go back many years.
Many.
All right, let's go back to 1961, all right? And look, it was an ugly time. The racial slurs, the death threats, all of that. And then you fast forward 50 years later. So much has changed, people have changed, times have changed. Is it time to put the past in the past?
Never, never. Because, you know, when Barack Obama was running for president, in 2008, he went to Selma, Alabama, where back in the day, there was a huge demonstration. A lot of black people got beaten by the police, and there are, as you said, the dogs, the fire hoses. And now President Obama said he stood on the shoulders of giants. He understood and appreciated where he had come from. And I think it's important for all of us to continue to reflect on our history, because it's there that you know, they say, George Santayana once said, if you don't know your history, you're condemned to repeat it. And it is also the case that the lessons of the civil rights movement are lessons of faith and courage and commitment. And I've heard your guest today on the show talk about all the turmoil in other parts of the world. And, you know, it was the Arab Spring in Egypt and Yemen and all those countries where you could see the young people taking on some of the same ways that the civil rights movement people did. In fact, Rami Khouri, a journalist, Palestinian American journalist, talked about how some of those young people in the Arab Spring were wearing T-shirts that say, "We shall overcome." So those lessons of history continue to resonate as we continue to have challenges in the whole world.
Absolutely, and there's a point, you made a speech in Birmingham the other day, and I have to quote what you said because it was very profound, and I quote, you said, "Today we are seized with concern about fundamentalist terror, but I see no signs that we are seized with the kind of terror that results from our failure to prepare our young people to take their place as the giants on whose shoulders the generation behind them will stand. The terror of silence about our history is to me a greater threat than any emanating from extremists."
Well, I said it and I believe it. The Southern Poverty Law Center did a study in the recent years that showed that the civil rights movement is not being taught in the classrooms of America. And it's just like in South Africa, you have the Born Frees, and they don't really know much about apartheid and how people like Nelson Mandela and Ahmed Kathrada and all of those unknown names, as well as in Birmingham, a lot of unknown names of people like the warder. When Martin Luther King was in prison in Birmingham for demonstrating against the system, and he wrote Letter from a Birmingham Jail, that historical document of the movement, manifesto of the movement. It was a warder, a black warder, whose job was to clean up the slop in the prison, who smuggled into him little bits of paper that he wrote this seminal document that's good for all times. So there's so many giants on whose shoulders we all stand, and we need to know about them and what motivated them and what of their tradition we need to, and our young people need to carry on the struggle.
So do you despair when you hear, when you see the lack of knowledge amongst young people today?
No, I don't despair. I try to do something about it.
But you're one person. Who else should tell those stories?
All of us. We should all tell the stories. You know, I wrote this book called To the Mountaintop, Our Journey Through the Civil Rights Movement, and it's amazing. It came out last year, and it's for young readers, but it's amazing how many adults have come to say, I want to learn more about our history so that I can tell our children. It's up to the schools, it's up to the media. I love what you're trying to do here at Arise, because you are giving information about a group of people with a group of people that we rarely see doing this. So it's really important for us to share these stories with the younger generation, because they have to have the tools to become the giants on whose shoulders the next generation stands.
Yeah, they are for us, by us, aren't they?
Exactly.
Those stories. Yeah. Okay, so you lived in South Africa many years. We all know that. In fact, we spent a lot of time in South Africa together. Do you see a correlation, a comparison between post-apartheid South Africa and also this civil rights movement 50 years later? Is there a comparison?
Yeah, I think that there are comparisons. I mean, Martin Luther King talked about the beloved community when he was talking about America and the civil rights movement in the South. But he was prescient in that he, excuse me, also talked about the global community and how interconnected we are. He said we're all joined together by a single garment of destiny. And so I see a lot of the problems happening in South Africa, happening in the rest of the continent, where many of the African countries are now taking their baby steps to democracy. The same happening here. And so what the lesson of that is that democracy is a work in progress, and it's difficult to make it a reality in all of its manifestations. So in order to do that, again, we have to prepare our people for these challenges and to help them understand that in order for democracy to reach its promise, we have to remain vigilant and active, brave, and committed to its principles.
At the same time, Charlayne, you were in Birmingham again not too long ago, 50 years after Bull Connor ordered his men to water hose all those children. What's changed?
Well, in the last generation, a couple of decades, you've had a lot of black elected officials elected. You have people who, there's a Birmingham Civil Rights Institute, and right next door to the 16th Street Baptist Church, where those 4 little girls, innocent children, were bombed by 16 sticks of dynamite. One of them survived, the sister of one of them, although her eye was taken out. So you have that history well documented, but you also have Birmingham, which used to be called Bombingham, and now it could be called the Chocolate City in a way, because there are only black people there. One young woman, 19-year-old, told me that in her class, her high school class, she just graduated from high school, there was only one white student. And she said the black kids will go to the white schools, but the white kids don't come to the black schools. So you still don't have that dream that Martin Luther King had, that everybody's judged by not by the color of their skin, but the content of their character, because the color of skin is still determining so much. And in the final analysis, those with the color of skin that is black are still on the bottom of the totem pole.
And it brings me to a story where I was shocked when I heard about this. Some places in the South, even proms are segregated.
Oh, absolutely.
I was shocked.
But, you know,
up until recently, Georgia High School held a multiracial prom.
I read about that, too. And that's what I keep hearing. And nobody wants to apologize or go back to the days of Jim Crow segregation, but it's already there. I mean, in so many schools in America now, as I said before, in Birmingham, there's resegregation of the schools. And when I was going to school in the segregated South, we always inherited the books from the white schools with the torn out pages and, you know, destroyed in other kinds of ways. And it was separate and unequal. And by every measure in this country today, it's still the case that black people are on the bottom of every socioeconomic scale and every benefit that you can think of. And I think the schools are particularly vulnerable these days because our kids aren't being prepared to be the giants of the future.
Is that why you keep doing what you're doing, Charlayne? Is that why you refuse to give up? You refuse to ride into the sunset?
Well, I've had a wonderful life. I mean, my role model in the beginning of my life was a comic strip character called Brenda Starr. But as I was conditioned by the movement and taught by the movement, even as I was a part of it, I learned that it's important if you want to achieve a just society, even as journalists. I mean, we're supposed to be quote unquote objective. Our computers are objective, we're not. So it's okay for us to have passion about things, and I think that's how things get done. You have to stay passionate, and I think it's the lessons of the civil rights movement and that history that keep me going.
Yeah. Did you ever think there would be an African-American president in your lifetime?
I did, because I walked with faith. Faith is James Weldon Johnson's what we call the Black National Anthem, faith that the dark past has taught us, and that if you stay on that road to freedom, it's what Martin Luther King said. There are going to be some difficult days ahead, but we'll get to the mountaintop. And Barack Obama, when he, at his inauguration, he gave John Lewis, who got more blows to his head during the civil rights movement, I think, than anybody. He's now representative in the U.S. Congress, and he gave John a picture of that day, and it was autographed, "But for you, John." You know, so I felt that the sacrifices that people like John Lewis made would blaze that trail. And so I had the faith and the confidence built on what our dark past had taught us that we could have, because the other thing about the young people, you know, between Obama's first election and the second one, young people were complaining about, you know, not seeing their dreams realized, having to pay a lot of tuition, their families having to struggle to pay the mortgage. And so I thought, oh my goodness, they're not going to turn out again. And what did they do? They turned out. So there's something in the fabric of our society that no matter how despondent we get and depressed about circumstances, people rise to the occasion.
Charlayne, I could talk to you all day long, you know that.
Well, we can go on after lunch.
Good to see you as always.
Thank you, and thank you for being with this great network.
Thank you so much. Charlayne Hunter-Gault there, folks. Multi-award-winning journalist, author, many books too. Pick them up. And yes, civil rights activist.